Well, hello. What a wonderful occasion. What a wonderful space. And what a wonderful welcome to country that was. I don't think there's a ceremony in Australia that's more beautiful or more generous than Welcome to Country. Welcome to Country reminds us that our shared history, Australian history, is thousands of years old. And for a white historian like me, the wonderful thing is that that is no longer a novel thing to say. That we know that the history of Australians is thousands of years old. I feel proud to be part of the generation that is able to say that with confidence and with joy, and to be received into a space where I've been given permission to make that statement. So this is a talk really for those of us who are part of the new generation of Australians. The Australians that are on this great journey, a journey to belong. It's the story that I've called The Water Dreamers. It's why I wrote the book, The Water Dreamers, so that I could explore the story of how that new generation of Australians could explore their aquatic boundaries and the aquatic boundaries they shared with the original Australians. Because the first fleeters were wet country people. They came here to the Aboriginal continent from green and pleasant lands. And somewhere out there, they met a formidable barrier that they called the bush. They had one word for all of it. It was just bush. And they experienced that bush so often as a dry and a silent place. A place which said, you don't belong. You dream of water and you think that this place is dry. So they experienced alienation. First slide there. They experienced alienation. They experienced a sense that they were alien here. It's so different from the Americans. The Americans journey west and they have this experience. The experience that they are a people with a manifest destiny. The great plains lie before them and it's as if the land is crying, welcome. And you can see that extraordinary painting there from 1872, which Americans often wheel out as an illustration of manifest destiny, with the indigenous culture moving away to the west and the great telegraph being laid across the continent as civilization sweeps across the land. By the way, the information revolution did not start in the 1980s or the 1970s. It began in the 1870s with the telegraph. That's the first time that electronic information becomes a reality and that the new paradigm comes into force. Now, the explorers of Australia, by contrast, experience over and over again a sense of disappointment. They experience a sense that the centre of the land is silent, that it will not speak to them. You know, they started off with hope in their hearts. Charles Sturt set out, we know, looking for an inland sea. But when he got out there, what he experienced, he said again and again, was a sense of death-like silence. He had the feeling that he'd come to a land that was silent and which didn't want him. Now, I think there are several responses in the 19th century among white historians to this death-like silence, in this attempt to belong in this land which doesn't present you with a manifest destiny. And I've called the first and great response necro-nationalism. Necro-nationalism. A nationalism based on death. A nationalism that glories in madness, death and defeat. It's the credo that's put into words by Henry Lawson. You know those great words that end that famous story of his, The Bush Undertaker. And the sun sank again on the grand Australian bush, the nurse and tutor of eccentric minds, the home of the weird and of much that is different in other lands. The sun sank again in the grand Australian bush, the nurse and tutor of eccentric minds, the home of the weird and of much that is different in other lands. Now this is our great poet, our great story writer, who in the end is saying, my sense of belonging is something I want to express as alienation, that this is the home of the weird. You know, we're often asked, people often talk to me about why we venerate dead explorers. And they say, oh, it's because we like failure. Australians love failure. Well, we don't love failure. We want our team to win. I want my team today to win. The reason we venerate Leichhardt and Burke and Wills are here. No, that's Henry Lawson. Here's Burke and Wills. The reason we venerate Burke and Wills is because we believe that in death they were received into a mystery. That out there in the silence, they learned things that you and I do not know. That somehow in death they've been received into another dimension of knowledge, which is knowledge of the land. That's why we venerate Leichhardt. Leichhardt is even more potent because we didn't find his body. If you think about Patrick White's novel Voss, a novel I think very unhealthy actually. Voss is about how a man achieves apotheosis by dying in the landscape and somehow being received into its mystery. This is all about alienation and belonging. It's about people who say, yes, we can die here, but are not sure whether we can live here. Now, I should say that I don't share the view that we cling to the coast. You know, people often say, oh, white Australians, there's something wrong with them. They cling to the coast as if they're afraid of going inland. We cling to the coast because we do understand our aquatic boundaries. We live where it rains. There's the rainfall map and the population map, and we all know that they map onto one another. And if you were to look at a map of Aboriginal population, and there are such maps, you'll see that Aborigines in the times before the whites arrived lived in greater concentrations here on the coast than they did in the centre. Why? Because that's our shared biology. That's what the land will support. Now, at the end of the 19th century, next stage of belonging, a new group arrived I call the Water Dreamers. And they represent a new and optimistic spirit. A spirit that you can belong and that we will do it by hydroengineering. We say, okay, the continent doesn't want us, the continent's a place of death and silence. We will engineer a new kind of Australia. We'll build it when we irrigate, we'll build dams, we'll transform the land. And even Henry Lawson, dear old Henry Lawson, he gets the bug. This is his retort to the unbelievers. He says, God sends answer for the rain, and away on the lease, I'll do it again. God for answer sends the rain, and away on the western lease, the limitless plain grows green again, and the fattening stock increase. We'll lock your rivers, my land, my land. We'll dig lakes on your farthest run, while down in the corners where the houses stand, they drivel, Australia's done. So this new idea, this water dreaming, is expressed in a sense that we can engineer a new kind of Australia, because there is no nature out there. Nature is a big bowl of nothing. The desert's nothing. There's nothing there at all. We have to bring water and life here through hydroengineering. And the great exponent of this is a book called Australia Unlimited, which was written by a man called Edwin Brady. And you'll see Edwin Brady here in the next slide, talking to Henry Lawson, in fact, the great pessimist and the great optimist who were chums, embracing each other. And this is the book. It weighs 4 kilos, and it's a kind of Bible. It's a kind of Bible that says we can believe here. It's a Bible that says that this is a land of unlimited potentialities. Irrigation, hydroengineering, they will change Australia. Brady said the population of Australia could be 100 million, it could be 500 million. All we need to do is irrigate. This is the story of Australia Unlimited. Now, you and I know that the dream of Australia Unlimited has done enormous damage to this country. That irrigation has sucked the Murray-Darling Basin dry. There are questions about the Snowy Mountain scheme, what it's doing to the rivers that it draws upon. But understand, this was a great and generous dream. It was about believing in the country, but failing to understand that there was nature out there. And in the 70s, a new attempt to belong appears in Australia. It's the ethos of wilderness. Now, we all know the story because it's in the memory of many of us. In 1972, the government in Tasmania announces plans to flood the beautiful Lake Pedder, and the Wilderness Society is born out of an attempt to resist that. And the battle is lost, but of course the wilderness movement is born, and they are activated again when the Franklin River is threatened back in 1983. Wilderness is a very positive step on the journey to belonging. It makes us feel good. It says, yeah, look, there's some nature. There's some nature over there. We understand it, and it's easy to do because it's Tasmania and it's rainy and it's full of forest and so on. But wilderness cannot be the final move in our journey to belong. Because wilderness reinforces our sense that we live alienated from nature. That here in Sydney, this isn't nature. Nature's something beautiful and pristine over there. And nature also is unacceptable, wilderness, because it erases Aboriginal presence. It says that's a pristine realm where human foot has never trod. Well, of course, human foot has been treading there for 50,000 years. It's in fact rather cruel that the notion of wilderness, never trod by human being, has taken root so resolutely in Tasmania. This is the challenge of belonging, the challenge of the water dreamers. To understand that what we do is part of nature. You know, in Australia, we're one of the few countries where we talk about a farm as if it's not part of nature. As if nature ends at the farm gate and what we do on the farm is artificial. In all the discussions about the Murray-Darling Basin, where the water should go, the environment is over here and the farms are over there, and they're fighting with each other. Until we accept that the farm is a part of nature, that everybody in the debate understands that to farm is natural, to build canals is natural, to build dams is a way we interact with nature, that Sydney itself is as natural as an ant's nest, that the transport system, the sewerage system, the power grid, the internet, they're all part of nature. You know, we need to believe that we can build cities in the Pilbara and not destroy the environment or compromise Aboriginal integrity. We need to treat our rivers and our lakes not as vessels filled with water that we view as a tradable commodity, but as the arteries of a living country which sustain us and give us life and prosperity. And there is a great sign of hope, you know. If you'd asked an Australian in 1900, a white Australian in 1900, what lies in the middle of Australia, they would have said Lake Eyre. Lake Eyre was the dead heart, a symbol of alienation, of disappointment. It was the withered sump of Charles Sturt's inland sea. But you ask an Australian, ask anybody what's in the centre of Australia today, and they say Uluru. That movement of the centre from Lake Eyre to Ayers Rock Uluru is the most fundamental change of heart that white Australians have undergone. Because it says that the centre of our country is a place of beauty, a place that welcomes us, and a place of Aboriginality. It's a site of reconciliation between white Australians and Aboriginal Australians, and it's a site of reconciliation between white Australians and the land. It's a sign that we are hearing nature and life where once we heard silence and death. It's a sign that at last we are starting to belong. Thank you.